Hey, everyone. How are you? Today we are going to talk about tarot versus oracle. So go ahead, if you guys have experience with these, go ahead and put in the comments what you prefer and why. I'm just curious to see where everyone kind of falls on that. And then we're going to talk about today just kind of what the differences are in those. And see like why, you go ahead and put in the comments of like why you would prefer one or the other. And I will let you guys know kind of where I stand on that. All righty, let's get into it. All right, so tarot versus oracle. Okay. And you guys can choose your little, which side you're on, right? Do a little heart or a little thumbs up. So first, before we get started, what does that even mean, right? So tarot and oracle are types of decks that people use to do like intuitive readings, okay, either for themselves or for other people. So basically what it means is you're getting intuitive messages based on the card that you pull, right? You shuffle the deck, you might cut it, you might, pick a card, anything like that, and that's gives you guidance, right? And some people believe it's just like an our intuition or our inner guidance. Some people might believe it's a higher power or the universal energy or God or, whatever you believe and whatever you call the universal energy, right? And so that's basically what it is, right? So you have a problem or just some guidance or a thought, you want some clarity, you ask a question that you want clarity around and you think about it, and then you intuitively pull a card and that gives you the message on maybe what you should do or what you should think about, or just if, for me, I usually do just a general, so just setting intentions, right? You can set general intentions. So what are the major differences? The first major difference is the way the cards are set up. So if you're looking at tarot, the cards are set up very systematically. So really, the deck that you buy or get is still going to follow the same system mostly. There's always some variances a little bit, but it's mostly going to follow the same system. And that system is you have your major houses, or I think you call it the major arcania, if I'm saying that right. And these are going to be like, usually it's like the people like that you hear like on movies and stuff where it's like you get the fool or, my mind just drew a complete blank. So feel free to fill me in on the chat. You might get like the jester, which is also the fool. Why do I keep coming up with that? The death card, things like that, where it's like a specific label. The wizard, the grandmaster, something like that. Okay. And that's the major arcania. Then you have the minor arcania, which is very similar to like a deck of cards, where you have each suit, right? This is where you have your cups and your pence and your swords. And then each of those have like one through a king, right? The one of swords, the two of swords, things like that, the king of swords, right? So that's the basic setup. And depending on which card you get, all of those kind of have symbolics, right? Swords have symbolism. The number has a symbolism. The major, like, people have their specific symbolism. So like if you pull a 5 of swords, the 5 is going to represent something, and then the swords are going to represent something, and then those get put together, right, to come up with your meaning. And there's lots of different variances based on the type of tarot card you buy, right, depending on what the artwork is and the kind of theme of the cards, right? You can buy just a basic deck, but they have, you know, fairies and nature and spirit animals and all that kind of stuff. And then that adds that little variances as well. So they follow made a pretty consistent structure, but they're small variances, right? An oracle deck, on the other hand, has, instead of following a specific system, they just basically have worded cards. Okay, so they have basic words on them, like nature, balance, healthful eating. Or it might be something specific, like if you have ones that are around like saints and angels, it's going to have specific people, right? Or you might have an archangel one, or you might have a fairy one, and all those names might relate around fairies, right? But that's the difference, is your oracle cards are going to vary based off the theme you buy, right? If you buy nature oracle cards, your cards are going to have things like volcano, earthquake, ocean, right? Lake, something like that, where those words are going to represent something, right? Like we know that if you pulled a volcano card, it might be like something explosive is going to happen, or you might be feeling very elevated and explosive, right? Versus like if you pulled the lake card where everything's calm, right? So that's kind of the difference. And with oracle cards, you're not going to get the same words in each deck. Like each deck is going to have their own theme and their own words. A lot of times you can find consistent themes, right? You can find balance as a consistent theme. You can find abundance as a consistent theme. You can find like forgiveness, right? But they don't follow a consistent like structure like tarot cards do. The second, and I'm more team oracle for this reason. I've done tarot and I have a deck or two, but I don't really use them, is for me, oracle tends to stay on the more positive side. Sometimes with tarot, there's a lot of, like they say, if your card's upside down, like if you flip it and it's not right side up, then that can do like kind of an opposite meaning where it might be more negative. Oracles tend to just stay on the positive side or give you positive guidance to help a situation. So that is kind of more why I follow oracle more, is just because I like to stay on the positive side. I'm like, yeah, I don't need you to tell me I'm broke, okay? I want you to tell me when the money's coming in, right? Things like that. And so that's just my preference. The third difference I've noticed is oracle cards tend to have a more like religious undertone. Right? And I don't consider myself religious, but I do, you know, believe in God and angels and a higher power and things like that. And I know some tarot decks have that in there, but it's not all of them. So that's where it kind of that more religious undertones tend to go into the oracle cards categories, right? So basically just the structure, the positive nature, and then the oracles have religious, where tarot tends to be a little bit less religiously biased, right? And some people really prefer that. And there are times when I'm like, I lean more towards that. Okay. So again, I have both types of decks. You know, I think they're both great. That's just kind of the differences that we hear when people talk about like oracle readings and tarot readings and things like that. Those are the biggest differences that I've noticed. And again, not right, not wrong, nothing like that. Okay, just letting people know so that if you are looking, you kind of are like, oh, I know the differences. So they're both going to give you guidance. I tend to use them as guidance. Okay, I don't tend to use them to try to tell the future or anything like that. People definitely do use them in that sense, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's not my intention for them. Okay, so I like to use them more for guidance. Alrighty, well, again, let me know in the comments which one you prefer and why. Okay, and I would love to hear that. You guys have a fantastic day.